I'm Victoria Pearson, but you can call me V, and for weeks and weeks and weeks now, I have been promising to show you a new painting of mine. I have finally finished it. Ta-da! And so I thought I would take you along and show you the process of how I did it. So this painting actually started its life as a completely different painting that I did back in like 2017 and I didn't like anymore. So I completely covered it with black paint, let it dry for about 3 days, and then decided to go into it. Now I knew that I wanted to do something with a lighthouse, a moon, and that was mainly painted in shades of light. I wanted to mostly use white, although at the end I did end up bringing a couple of other colours in just to make things pop a little bit. And so I started off just by dry brushing on white for the clouds, and I loved the effect that happened from that. If this had just been a white canvas, then it probably would have been a bit easier to do my moon, to be honest. But I really liked the sort of misty effect that was happening as I was pulling this all together. The sky is my favourite part of this painting. It took me ever such a long time to do for reasons that will become clear in a little while. Now here I am adding some water because it was supposed to be the moon over the sea. I am not very good at painting water, and that became very evident while I was painting this. For some reason I paint water quite a lot, even though I really struggle to it. It takes me a really long time of layering up highlights and shadow tones to try and make the water look watery, but I think I managed it at the end. I did add a tiniest bit of really deep blue into this, but by the time I'd finished layering the painting, actually you can't really see the blue anymore. And I was trying to sort of have an effect where there were rocks on the side and you're standing on sand dunes looking down at a beach. So that is the sort of perspective that I'm trying to create here. And I think that actually I did the waves crashing into the rocks a bit too much on this pass through, and I toned them down later, and I think that the painting looks better for it. I did all of this part in my very first session, just trying to sort of get everything into the composition how I wanted it. And it was an interesting time because I've had to speed this up so that we can fit it in under an hour video. So what you can't hear is that the whole time that I'm painting this, my 10-year-old is asking me questions like, how can you fight a saber-toothed tiger? Who would win, a T-Rex or a saber-toothed tiger? And then he told me that if he were fighting a saber-toothed tiger, he would simply grab its teeth and wrestle it to the ground. Great plan, kiddo. So here was my first sort of attempt at it. I've got some grass in the foreground to sort of show you that it's on the dunes, and then I've got this lighthouse in the distance. And I was pretty pleased with it until one of my kids said, I really like the man that's holding a torch. And that is not what it was supposed to be. So I thought, yeah, perspective-wise, doesn't really look like a lighthouse, does it? So I tried adding a little town in to give it a bit of sense of perspective. I've got these little tiny lights here, and I was very happy with how that came out. And I like the little town, but I still felt, after that had been said, that it looked like a guy with a torch still. So I had a little cry about it, to be honest, and then I worked on the rocks in the corner instead and some of the texturing parts and did some more highlights while I thought about how the heck I was going to fix this painting. After it had dried, I still wasn't overly happy with it. I'd added in some sort of orangey umber sort of colours to the town, and I'm really pleased with how the town looks. But even though those buildings were the right sort of size and perspective, I still felt like the lighthouse wasn't really lighthousing. Ever since my kid said it looked like a dude with a torch, I couldn't unsee that anymore. And so there was nothing for it but to paint over the whole lighthouse and the whole sky and do the whole top half of the painting all over again so that I could change the size of this lighthouse. Of course, I couldn't change the size of the lighthouse without also changing the way the light fell on the clouds and things. So it just meant having to go over the whole of the sky again and start over. And I tried added in some red bits and I didn't like how it looked, so I went back over them with black. And then I resized my lighthouse and started adding light back into the clouds. And although I dithered for several weeks before doing this, which is why the painting took so long to actually be finished, I am so very glad that I added this step in and changed the size of the lighthouse in it, because now it actually does look like a lighthouse and not a dude with a torch. And I'm very pleased with how that came out in the end. And this time when I was painting, I wasn't fielding questions about who would win, a T-Rex or the Hulk, and so it was a lot easier to focus up and get it done. It didn't take me nearly as long as I thought it was going to finish these last little bits and get my detailing on the lighthouse. And then I just re-brightened up the moon and relit the clouds a little bit, and Then I decided it needed a few more highlights on the water as well, so I started getting in there with that. And one of the things that I really like doing when I'm painting water actually is to really get involved with my fingers. You can actually see me doing it with the moon here as well. I like to smudge with my hands. I like to move paint around with my hands. It just makes it easier. It feels more tactile. It feels more like I have more control over it than when I'm using the paintbrush. I know finger painting is for 5-year-olds, whatever, but it came out really, really well. And so I'm very pleased with it. And so now finally I am done. And I just love how it turned out in the end. I'm so glad that I decided to improve it. Well, I hope that you enjoyed watching me paint that. It took a lot longer than I expected to, not because the painting itself was particularly complicated, but because life kept getting in the way of my painting time. I'm very, very glad to have finished it though. It is the first sort of picture that I've done that I've tried to do purely in shades of light, and I'm really, really pleased with how it came out. Join me on Monday for my next vlog, 6 a.m. UK time. I will be here talking about something. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to be interviewing one of my author friends or doing something a little bit different, but I will be here regardless, and I will be here every single morning in your shorts, taking a great big deep breath and letting you know what I'm grateful for. And I'm also here on a Witchy Wednesday doing an intuitive tarot card read for you as well. If you've decided that you are absolutely in love with this painting, it will be for sale on my Ko-fi store today. There is only one of it. I don't do prints because I don't know how. So if you've fallen in love with it, check it out on my Ko-fi store today. I will put the address in the description as well as on here somewhere. Until Monday though, you have yourself a magical week.